AITA for halting the applause at my wife's promotion banquet by showing our anniversary card? I'm Nathan, 37, and Lauren and I had been married for 9 years by the time she decided to turn me into a cautionary tale in front of a room full of people. For most of our marriage, I was proud to be her husband in the quiet ways nobody applauds. I saved the last cup of coffee for her when she had an early morning. I remembered which takeout place always made her sick, even though she kept forgetting. I sat through dinners and work events where I barely knew anyone because my presence mattered to her. At least, it used to. I never minded standing in the background. I just didn't realize Lauren had started confusing the background with the floor. She wasn't always cruel. That's the part people tend to miss when they hear how a marriage ended up in a banquet room with printed messages beside a microphone. When we first got together, I loved her confidence. Lauren could walk into a room without knowing anybody and somehow leave with 3 new friends and an invitation to something. She was sharp, funny, and ambitious without being ashamed of it. I admired that. I was proud of her before she ever needed an audience. For years, we worked well because we were different. Lauren liked noise, plans, crowded tables, and being in the middle of things. I liked quieter dinners and knowing exactly where I had parked. She teased me about my calendar reminders. I teased her about buying groceries without checking what we already had. It felt affectionate then. Somewhere along the way, the jokes changed. The first time I noticed it was at dinner with Diane, Lauren's mother. Lauren had forgotten the reservation time, and I showed her the confirmation on my phone. Diane laughed and said, "Good thing one of you is organized." Lauren rolled her eyes. Nathan would get lost walking from the couch to the kitchen without a reminder. Everyone laughed, including me. It was harmless enough. Or I told myself it was. A few weeks later, we were with friends when Lauren described me as the human version of a safe investment. Sienna, one of her closest friends, asked, "Is that a compliment?" Lauren took a sip of wine and said, "It's stable, not exciting, but unlikely to collapse." Again, people laughed. I smiled because the alternative was making everyone uncomfortable. On the drive home, I said, "I don't like being turned into a laugh line." Lauren looked out the passenger window. "Oh, come on. It was a joke." It didn't feel like one. Everyone else understood it. Everyone else isn't married to you. That made her go quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, "This is exactly what I mean. You're too sensitive lately." I remember gripping the steering wheel and thinking the conversation had somehow moved from what she said to what was wrong with me for hearing it. After that, the jokes became less playful and more useful to her. If I reminded her we had plans, I was controlling. If I asked what time she would be home, I was insecure. If I didn't ask, I was emotionally absent. If I said I missed spending time together, I was threatened by her success. There was no correct answer because Lauren had stopped discussing what I did. She was assigning motives to everything I did, and every motive made her the strong one and me the small one. Adrian started appearing in our conversations around that time. At first, he was simply the senior person at work who believed in her. Lauren mentioned that he had praised a presentation or trusted her with a difficult project. I was happy for her. Then it became, "Adrian says I shouldn't apologize for taking up space." Or, "Adrian thinks people underestimate me because I make things look easy." Or, "Adrian understands what it takes to carry this kind of pressure." One night, she came home after 10, dropped her purse on the counter, and started reheating food without looking at me. "Long meeting?" I asked. "Very." "How did it go?" She sighed. "Can we not do this?" "Do what?" The interrogation. I looked at the clock on the microwave. I asked how your meeting went. "You always make me feel like I need to defend myself." "I didn't ask you to defend anything." She shoved the container into the microwave harder than necessary. Adrian listens without turning everything into a problem. That was the first time she used him as a comparison. I leaned against the counter. "Then help me understand instead of making me compete with a story I wasn't told." "I'm not making you compete. You just told me another man listens better because I asked how your meeting went." Her face tightened. "You hear what you want to hear." The microwave beeped. She took the food upstairs and ate in bed. I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the light above the stove, wondering how a normal question had turned into evidence that I was failing her. I tried to fix things privately. I suggested we start having one night a week with no work talk and no phones at the table. Lauren agreed. then canceled the first dinner because Adrian needed her to review something. The next week, she said she was too tired. The week after that, she booked drinks with Sienna. I suggested counseling. She told me therapy was not a punishment she would accept because I was insecure. I found 3 marriage counselors who had openings and emailed Lauren the options. She did not answer. A week later, I scheduled a consultation with one of them and forwarded her the confirmation. She declined the calendar invitation. The message attached said, "I can't make this. Please stop creating emergencies." I canceled the appointment. A month later, Sienna cornered me near the kitchen during a small dinner at our place. She lowered her voice and said, "Lauren feels like she's fighting for this marriage by herself." I almost laughed because I thought she was joking. "She told you that?" Sienna gave me a guarded look. "She said you refused counseling." I glanced across the room. Lauren was talking to Diane, smiling like she couldn't feel me looking at her. "I didn't refuse," I said. "I scheduled it." Sienna crossed her arms. "That's not what I heard. I have the email." Her expression changed for half a second, then settled back into loyalty. "I'm not getting in the middle. You already are." She left the kitchen without answering. That conversation bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Lauren wasn't only venting after arguments. She was building a version of our marriage for other people. In her version, I was jealous of her success. I was emotionally unavailable. I resisted help. I needed her to stay smaller so I could feel bigger. None of it matched the marriage I was living in. I was the one covering household responsibilities when she worked late. I rearranged plans when she needed to travel. I paid deposits for events and dinners she said were important for networking. I stayed up when she wanted to practice presentations. I knew which stories she repeated when she was nervous and which earrings she wore when she needed to feel confident. I did not need applause for any of it. I did need her not to erase it. One Friday night, I called Caleb from my car after another argument. He had been my closest friend for years and had a talent for saying the thing I did not want to hear. There was a crumpled fast food receipt on the dashboard, and I kept folding it smaller while I told him what had happened. Lauren had come home late again. I had asked if we could talk. She accused me of trying to ruin a good week because she had received news that a promotion was likely. Then she said, "You always make my confidence feel like an attack." Caleb listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked, "Do you think she's having an affair?" "I don't know." "Do you think she's trying to make people believe you're a bad husband?" "Yes." "Then stop arguing like the argument is private." I looked through the windshield at the parked cars ahead of me. What does that mean? It means she's already telling people what your reaction means before you have it. That sounds insane. It sounds strategic. I don't want to be strategic with my wife. I know. But if you yell, she wins. She already wrote the caption for that picture. I hated how much sense that made. Caleb continued, "You can be angry later. Be accurate now." After that call, I started keeping ordinary records. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to spy on Lauren. I did it because conversations with her had become slippery. A week after something happened, she would tell me I remembered it wrong. If I mentioned the counseling appointment, she said I had scheduled it at an impossible time. If I showed her that she had declined 2 options, she said the counselors were probably bad anyway. So I saved emails. I kept receipts connected to shared expenses. I made notes after conversations while they were fresh. I felt ridiculous at first. Then Lauren gave me a reason not to. The promotion became official about 3 weeks before our anniversary. Her company planned a formal dinner in her honor. There would be co-workers, senior leadership, friends, relatives, and a photographer. Lauren was thrilled. I was genuinely happy for her. Even then, I told her, "You earned this." She looked at me for a moment like she was checking whether I meant it. Then she said, "I just need you to be supportive that night." I was planning to be. No tension, no weird looks, no making it about us. I put down the dish towel I was holding. "Have I ever caused a scene at one of your events?" "Not a scene." "Then what are you asking me not to do?" She shook her head. This tone." "What tone?" "The one where you act calm, so I look unreasonable." That sentence stayed with me. Lauren had reached a point where even my calmness could be used against me. 2 days before the banquet, she accidentally sent me a voicemail meant for Sienna. I was in the grocery store when the notification came through. I put one earbud in and pressed play while standing beside a display of cereal. Lauren's voice filled my ear. "After tonight, everyone will finally understand what I've been dealing with." He'll smile because he always does. He doesn't have the guts to leave. I just need him not to ruin my image before the announcement is done. There was a pause, followed by the sound of a car door closing. Then the message ended. I listened one more time. Not 20 times. Once more, because I wanted to be sure I had heard it correctly. I had. The banquet was still 2 days away, so, after tonight, did not make sense until I realized she had probably recorded it while rehearsing something with Sienna. The important part was not the timing. It was the plan. Everyone would understand what she had been dealing with. He'll smile because he always does. He doesn't have the guts to leave. I left the cereal in my cart and walked out of the store without buying anything. That evening, Lauren asked me to print directions and parking information for Diane. She had forwarded an email chain to our family laptop and told me the attachment was at the bottom. I opened the email because she had asked me to. The parking document was there. So was a draft of her promotion speech. I would have ignored it if a line in the preview had not included the word husband. The draft had edits from Sienna and a short reply from Diane that said, powerful. Maybe soften the part about Nathan so people don't think you're bitter. I opened the attachment. Most of the speech was normal. Lauren thanked her team, talked about hard work, and praised Adrian for pushing her to trust herself. Then I reached a crossed-out paragraph. My husband was the lesson I had to outgrow. I learned that love without courage becomes another kind of cage. Another edited line said, Adrian believed in me when the person at home made me doubt myself. A comment from Sienna read, strong, but maybe too direct? Lauren had replied, that's the point. People need context. There it was. Not a careless joke. Not a glass of champagne making her emotional. Context. She had been preparing an audience. I printed the parking information for Diane. Then I printed the speech draft and the email page showing the comments. I did not confront Lauren that night. That was one of the hardest things I have ever done. She came downstairs wearing an old t-shirt, opened the refrigerator, and asked if we had any sparkling water. I told her it was on the bottom shelf. She found it and said, thanks. Then she stood at the counter scrolling on her phone as if she had not just written a speech describing me as a cage she had outgrown. Her phone lit up while she set it down to open the can. The lock screen preview was from Adrian. Tonight is your night. Don't let him make you feel small again. I did not touch the phone. I did not need to. Lauren glanced at the screen, turned it face down, and carried her drink upstairs. The next morning, I checked the joint account. There was a rideshare charge from 3 weeks earlier that ended near a hotel bar. There was also a charge from the bar itself shortly after 11 at night. That was the night Lauren had told me she was in a closed-door meeting and could not answer her phone. The charge did not prove an affair. It proved another lie. That mattered because Lauren's entire speech depended on the idea that she had been honest and unsupported while I quietly resented her. By then, I had enough to understand what she was doing. I still did not know exactly what I would do. I called Caleb again. This time, I told him about the voicemail and the speech draft. He was quiet for several seconds. Then he said, do you still want to go? Yes. Why? Because if I don't, she tells everyone I couldn't handle her success. And if you go? She may humiliate me anyway. Then decide your line before you walk in. I knew what he meant. I spent that afternoon putting together a sealed envelope. Nothing graphic. Nothing that exposed private details unrelated to the story she was telling. I included the counseling confirmations and her declined responses. I printed the line from the voicemail transcript. He'll smile because he always does. He doesn't have the guts to leave. I included the speech draft with the line about me being the lesson she had to outgrow. I printed the lock screen text from Adrian only because Lauren later forwarded me a screenshot of her messages by mistake while sending details about the banquet. Above the event information was another line from him. Dead weight can't handle your shine. Her reply beneath it said, he'll behave. He always does. I included that too. I added the joint account line showing the rideshare and hotel bar charge, but I marked it with a note that said, not proof of cheating. Proof that the meeting story was false. Then I put the envelope in the inside pocket of my jacket. On the way to the banquet, I stopped at a drugstore and bought Lauren an anniversary card. Our anniversary was the following week. The card was simple, with no glitter or long poem. I sat in my car and wrote, you were wrong about one thing. I did have the courage to stand beside you. I just won't stand here while you use me as proof of your strength. I came tonight hoping you would choose honesty before applause. Nathan. I placed the card in the same jacket pocket as the envelope. I had one rule for myself. If Lauren celebrated herself without humiliating me, the envelope would stay in my jacket. I would congratulate her. I would go home. We would have one final private conversation. If she used the microphone to smear me, I would answer in the room she chose. The banquet was exactly the kind of event Lauren loved. White tablecloths, assigned seating, printed speech cards, small arrangements in the center of every table, an open bar near the back wall, a photographer circling the room and catching people before they had time to adjust their smiles. Lauren looked beautiful. That made everything worse. She wore the dark blue dress she had bought for the event and small silver earrings I had given her years earlier. When I saw her near the entrance, talking with Diane and Sienna, I remembered helping her choose those earrings before an interview early in our marriage. Back then, she had asked, "Do I look like someone they'll take seriously?" I had said, "You look like someone they'll remember." At the banquet, she kissed Diane's cheek, hugged Sienna, and then turned to me. Her smile was polished and distant. "You made it," she said. I said I would. She adjusted my tie even though it did not need adjusting. "Let's have a good night." "I would like that." Diane looked me over and said, "This is a major moment for Lauren." "I know. She has always needed someone who can keep up." Lauren gave her mother a small warning look, but she was smiling. I said, "Marriage isn't a race, Diane." Diane pressed her lips together and looked away. Adrian approached before the silence became obvious. He was 42, polished in the way some men are when they have learned how to insult people without changing their tone. He held out his hand and smiled too broadly. "Nathan, the man behind the legend." I shook his hand. "Adrian, must be a full-time job keeping up with her. Only if you think marriage is a race." His smile held, but his eyes changed. Lauren laughed quickly. "Nathan loves that line." I had never said it before that night. Adrian put one hand lightly on Lauren's shoulder and told her someone from senior leadership wanted to meet her. She went with him without looking back. I watched them cross the room. He leaned close when he spoke. She touched his arm when she laughed. Neither gesture proved anything by itself. Together, they looked practiced. At our table, I noticed Adrian knew details he should not have known from ordinary work conversations. He knew Lauren hated the chocolate dessert option. He knew which part of her speech made her nervous. He used a phrase I had once said during an argument with her. "You can't build a future with someone committed to standing still." I had said those words about her refusal to work on our marriage. Adrian used them while discussing my supposed lack of ambition. That told me Lauren had not only complained about me, she had handed him pieces of our private life and let him arrange them into a version where he was the man who understood her. Before dinner, I went to the bar for club soda. Sienna followed me. She stood beside me and spoke quietly, like she was trying to be compassionate. "Tonight matters to her. Please don't make it about your insecurity." I looked at her. "Interesting word," I said. "Did she give you that one?" Sienna frowned. "I'm trying to help." "Did she also tell you I refused counseling?" Her face shifted. "She said you wouldn't commit to it." I scheduled 3 consultations. She declined 2 and ignored 1. "That's not what she told me." "I know." The bartender placed my glass on the counter. I picked it up. Sienna lowered her voice further. "Whatever is happening between you two, this is her night. It could have been." "What does that mean?" "It means I hope she remembers that." I walked back to the table. Dinner passed in small conversations that barely registered. People toasted Lauren. Diane told anyone who would listen that her daughter had always been destined for something bigger. Adrian moved from table to table like he was hosting the evening personally. Lauren barely spoke to me. Once, under the table, her knee touched mine. She pulled it away immediately. When dessert was served, Adrian tapped his glass and introduced Lauren. The room applauded. Lauren walked to the microphone carrying printed speech cards. The photographer moved to the side of the podium. For the first few minutes, her speech was excellent. She thanked her team. She told a funny story about an early mistake. She praised the people who had trusted her with difficult work. Then she thanked Diane. Her mother placed a hand over her heart and smiled. Lauren thanked Sienna for reminding her not to apologize for wanting more. Sienna lifted her glass. Then Lauren turned toward Adrian. Her voice changed. It softened. Adrian believed in me on the nights I forgot how to believe in myself, she said. He reminded me that ambition isn't something a woman should have to explain. Adrian looked down with a modest smile that fooled no one who had seen the messages in my jacket. Lauren continued. He showed up when it mattered. He understood the pressure, the sacrifices, and the loneliness that can come with becoming the person you're meant to be. The applause was slower that time. A few people glanced at me. Adrian stood and hugged her. His hands settled low on her back before he stepped away. I felt the envelope inside my jacket. I still did not move. Lauren returned to the microphone. She looked directly at me. And I learned something else, she said. Some men only love strong women until they have to stand next to one. There was a beat of silence. Then a few people laughed. Not because it was especially funny. Because she was smiling and they thought they were supposed to. Diane clapped first. Several others followed. Adrian smiled and touched Lauren's lower back as she stepped away from the podium. The photographer lowered his camera. At my table, one man stared into his wine glass. A woman beside him suddenly became very interested in adjusting her napkin. Sienna did not clap. I stood. Lauren saw me move, and her smile tightened. I walked to the front without rushing. I took the anniversary card from my jacket and placed it beside her printed speech cards. Then I set the sealed envelope next to it. The microphone gave a small burst of feedback when I adjusted it. I came here to celebrate my wife, I said. I didn't realize I was also the punchline. Nobody laughed. Lauren stepped closer and whispered, "Don't do this here." I looked at her. "You picked here." "Nathan, since you made me part of the speech, I'll answer from the same room." Adrian approached from the side. "I think emotions are running high." I ignored him. I opened the anniversary card and read the first line. "You were wrong about one thing." Then I looked at Lauren. "You said I didn't have the courage to stand beside you. That's what you told Sienna in the voicemail you accidentally sent me." Lauren's face went still. Sienna stared at her. I opened the envelope. I did not pass everything around. I did not read the hotel receipt first. I did not accuse her of sleeping with Adrian. I did not need to. I held up the voicemail transcript. He'll smile because he always does. He doesn't have the guts to leave. The room changed. It was not dramatic. No one gasped in unison. People simply stopped moving. I placed the page down. Then I held up the speech draft. My husband was the lesson I had to outgrow. Diane's smile disappeared. I looked at Sienna. "You commented that the line might be too direct." Her mouth opened, then closed. Lauren reached for the page. I moved it out of her hand. "Don't," she said. "You planned this." It was a draft. A draft you sent to your friend and your mother so they could help you decide how to humiliate me. I was trying to express how I felt. You were trying to establish a public story. Adrian stepped toward the microphone. "This is a misunderstanding built around private professional support." I turned to him. "Professional support?" Lauren needed people who believed in her. Did she need you to call her husband dead weight? His expression finally cracked. Only slightly, but enough. I read the message. "Dead weight can't handle your shine." Then Lauren's reply. "He'll behave. He always does." A chair scraped somewhere behind us. Adrian folded his hands in front of him. That message was taken out of context. Which word changes in context? He did not answer. I continued, still speaking to him. "You knew exactly what story she was telling. You just liked your role in it. You're twisting mentorship into something ugly. No, you knew the story was crooked. You liked being the rescuer." Lauren's eyes had filled with tears, but her voice stayed sharp. "You are humiliating me." I looked at her. "No, I protected you in private for months. You chose to humiliate me in public. You could have talked to me." I tried. I held up the counseling emails. 3 consultations. 2 declined. 1 ignored. Sienna took a step closer. "Lauren, you told me he refused." Lauren did not look at her. She looked only at me. "This is my promotion night." It was. "You ruined it. You used it." Her face twisted. "You couldn't let me have one night. I came with a card congratulating you. I sat through a speech where you thanked another man for understanding you. I stayed seated until you turned me into an insult." Diane finally spoke. "This is not the place." I faced her. "I agree." She had no answer for that. Lauren lowered her voice. "Please, we can go home and talk." "No." Her eyes widened, maybe because she had expected anger, but not refusal. I placed the counseling emails and the speech draft on the table beside the microphone. I kept the hotel charge and the rest of the documents in the envelope. The purpose was not to strip every private detail from our marriage. The purpose was to correct the lie. I closed the envelope and put it back in my jacket. Then I said, "If you want to call me your failure in public, I'm allowed to stop protecting your lies in public." I stepped away from the microphone. Lauren followed me toward the doors. Behind us, the room stayed mostly silent. No cheering, no dramatic applause for me. Just the uncomfortable sound of people shifting in their chairs and realizing they had participated in something ugly. The hallway outside the banquet room was bright and empty. Lauren caught up with me near the elevator. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded. I pressed the button. "You planned to humiliate me." It was one line. It was months of work. "You made me look insane in front of everyone. You told everyone I was insecure before I entered the room. Because you are." The elevator doors opened. I did not step in yet. "Do you hear yourself?" She wiped under one eye, careful not to smear her makeup. "Adrian has supported me. You have no idea what these past months have been like. I was there for them." "No, you weren't. I handled everything you said you didn't have time for. I tried to schedule counseling. I asked for dinner. I asked for one honest conversation. You always asked at the worst time. There was always a worse time." She looked back toward the banquet doors. "People are going to think I'm having an affair." "Are you?" Her answer came too slowly. "That isn't the point. It is one of them." "Nothing happened. Then why did you lie about the hotel bar?" She froze. I did not need to show her the receipt. She knew exactly which night I meant. It was drinks after a meeting. "You told me you were still in the office. Because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" "Ask why my wife lied. You were already suspicious." "I was suspicious because you were lying." She exhaled sharply and looked toward the ceiling. Then she said the sentence that ended the last piece of hope I had brought into the building. "Do you understand what this is going to do to my image? Not our marriage. Not my trust. Not the 9 years we had spent together. Her image." I stepped into the elevator. Lauren put one hand between the doors. "Nathan, don't leave like this. I'm not competing with a man you turned into your audience. I'm leaving the stage you built for me." "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I don't have to perform being fine." I gently moved her hand away from the door. She stared at me as it closed. In the lobby, my phone started buzzing. Lauren called twice. Then Diane. Then Lauren again. I ordered a rideshare because I did not trust myself to drive while my hands were shaking. That detail matters. I was calm in the banquet room, but calm didn't mean I was untouched. By the time the car arrived, I felt like my body had finally realized what had happened. I sat in the back seat and watched streetlights pass across the window. Caleb called. I answered. "Are you out?" he asked. "Yes." "Did you yell?" "No." "Did you say what needed to be said?" "Yes." "Then don't go back tonight." I stayed with him for several days. The next morning, I woke up to 31 missed calls and more messages than I wanted to read. Lauren's first message said, "We need to control the damage before people start talking." The second said, "Adrian is furious." The third said, "My mother is devastated." The fourth finally said, "I can't believe you did that to me." There was nothing about what she had done to me. I replied once, "I will discuss logistics, counseling, or separation. I will not discuss how to make your public story sound better." Then I muted the conversation. Sienna texted around noon. Her message was uncomfortable and brief. "I owe you an apology. She told me you refused counseling and that you tried to make her turn down the promotion. I only heard what she wanted me to repeat. I should have asked you before speaking to you the way I did." I stared at it for a while before replying. "Thank you for saying that." I did not tell her it was fine. It was not. Diane did not apologize. She sent one message saying, "Families should handle conflict privately." I replied, "I tried." She never answered. Her silence was more revealing than any apology would have been. Adrian distanced himself almost immediately. The polished language started the next day. Lauren told me he had called the messages informal encouragement taken out of context. He said his role had always been professional mentorship and that he regretted being drawn into a private marital dispute. Apparently, calling a married woman's husband dead weight was mentorship until the words were printed beside a microphone. He stopped contacting Lauren outside work hours. He removed himself from a future event they were supposed to attend together. He did not lose his job or face some dramatic public downfall. He simply backed away when the rescuer role stopped flattering him. That hurt Lauren more than she admitted. For months, Adrian had told her she was exceptional, misunderstood, and too bright to be diminished by ordinary people. Once those messages became embarrassing, he treated her like a professional risk. The company did not collapse. Lauren did not lose her promotion. But the banquet followed her. People who had laughed avoided mentioning the speech. Some co-workers became more formal around her. A few privately asked why she had included a planned attack on her husband in a professional toast. The event photographer sent a gallery with dozens of smiling pictures. There were none from the final 10 minutes. Lauren blamed me for the awkwardness. When we finally met 4 days later, it was at our dining table. She arrived before me and had arranged 2 glasses of water as if the right setup could make the conversation manageable. I sat across from her. She looked tired. For the first time in months, she was not performing confidence. She said, "I need you to understand that I was under a lot of pressure." I understand. I felt alone. You told people I abandoned you while declining every attempt I made to repair things. I didn't decline every attempt. You declined counseling. The timing was bad. You canceled our dinners. I was working. You told Adrian private details about our marriage. I needed someone to talk to. You gave him my words and let him use them against me. She looked down at her water. Nothing physical happened. Was it emotional? She did not answer. I waited. Finally, she said, "I don't know what label you want. I want the truth." I cared about what he thought. More than what I thought. Sometimes. Did you tell him you wished you were with someone more like him? She closed her eyes. That was enough. I leaned back in my chair. Lauren said, "I got carried away." No, you made choices. I was finally succeeding. I know. And it felt like every conversation at home was about what I was doing wrong. Because you were lying, canceling plans, and mocking me in public. You always make it sound so simple. It isn't simple. It is specific. She looked at me with frustration. What do you want me to say? That you built a false story about me because it made you look stronger. I didn't build a false story. Then we're done for today. I stood. She looked shocked. You're leaving? Yes. You can't just walk away every time I say something you don't like. I stayed for 9 years. Walking away is new. Nathan, sit down. No. Her voice cracked. Are you asking for a divorce? I'm asking for accountability. If that never comes, separation becomes divorce. She pressed both hands flat on the table. I said I got carried away. That is not accountability. What would be enough? Say what you did without turning it into pressure, loneliness, bad timing, or my insecurity. She stared at me for a long time. Then she said, "You humiliated me too." I nodded once. That's your answer. I left. The next week, I met with a family lawyer. It was not dramatic. There was no secret plan to destroy Lauren. I wanted to understand our finances, our legal obligations, and what separation would mean if counseling failed. I opened an individual account for new income and personal expenses. I did not drain our joint account. I did not cancel anything essential. I separated non-essential charges connected to Lauren's public events, subscriptions, and future dinners that I had been paying for because she said they were investments in her career. When she noticed, she called me. You canceled the deposit for the fall event. It was refundable, and it was paid from my personal card. You said you would cover it. I said that before you used me as dead weight in your success story. So you're punishing me financially. No, I'm stopping financial support for events where I am expected to fund my own humiliation. She was silent. Then she said, "This is exactly the kind of thing I meant." What kind of thing? You can't stand that I don't need you. Then paying your event deposits should not be a problem. She hung up. That conversation made the separation easier to understand. Lauren wanted the support I provided, but she did not want the support to count. She wanted me behind her, beneath her, and invisible enough that she could describe herself as standing alone. 2 weeks after the banquet, she agreed to counseling. I gave her one condition before I would attend. Counseling starts with the truth, or it doesn't start. She asked what that meant. It means you say you intentionally told people I refused counseling when I didn't. You say you prepared a speech to embarrass me. You say you allowed Adrian to insult me because his attention felt good. You don't call it poor wording. She said, you're asking me to confess to your version. No, I'm asking you to acknowledge documented facts. She did not agree. So counseling did not start. We remained separated. Over the next few months, Lauren tried several approaches. At first, she focused on optics. She wanted us to attend a family dinner together so Diane would stop getting questions. She suggested we post a photo for our anniversary because people had noticed neither of us mentioned it. I refused. Then she became angry. She accused me of enjoying the attention from people who thought I had been wronged. I reminded her I had not told anyone beyond what happened in the room. Then she became nostalgic. She sent pictures from trips, old messages, and a photo of the silver earrings from the banquet. I did not ignore those things because they meant nothing. I ignored them because they meant a lot, and none of them changed what she had chosen to do. Eventually, her messages became quieter. One evening, she wrote, I think I made you smaller in my head so I wouldn't feel guilty about how I was treating you. It was the first honest sentence she had sent me. I replied, yes. She called me after that. Her voice was soft. I am sorry. For what? There was a long pause. Then she said, for telling people you were threatened by me when you were asking me to respect you. For lying about counseling. For letting Adrian talk about you like that. For planning that line in the speech. I closed my eyes. That was what I had been asking for. Months earlier, I would have taken those words as proof we could fix everything. By then, they were proof that she had always been capable of understanding. She simply had not done it until the consequences reached her. I said, thank you for saying it. Can we try counseling now? We can discuss it. Does that mean you're coming home? No. She cried quietly. I did not rush to comfort her. That was difficult, but necessary. For years, every time Lauren felt the consequences of her own actions, I had stepped in to make the feeling easier. Then the original issue disappeared beneath the emergency of her discomfort. I would not do that anymore. We eventually attended counseling while remaining separated. The counselor did not magically save us. There was no breakthrough session where Lauren apologized perfectly and I forgot the banquet. What counseling did was remove her audience. She could not turn every question into a speech about strong women and insecure men. She had to answer specifics. Why did she tell Sienna I refused counseling? Why did she send the speech draft to Diane? Why did Adrian know private phrases from our arguments? Why did she lie about the hotel bar? Why did she need the room to see me as lesser on the night she felt most successful? Lauren answered some of those questions. She avoided others. She admitted the relationship with Adrian had become emotionally inappropriate. She insisted it had never become physical. I still do not know whether that is true. By then, the exact line mattered less than the pattern. She had replaced intimacy with admiration. She preferred Adrian because he only saw the polished version of her. I saw the woman who left wet towels on the bed, forgot appointments, became defensive, and sometimes hurt people. Marriage asked her to be known. Adrian only asked her to shine. After several months, I decided not to return to the marriage. It was not because of one speech. It was because the speech showed me the marriage Lauren wanted. She wanted a quiet husband who handled the practical burdens, funded the background, smiled through public disrespect, and stayed loyal enough to make her story believable. Once I stopped playing that role, she treated my boundaries as cruelty. We began the divorce process without a war. There were difficult conversations about money, furniture, and what belonged to whom. Diane remained distant. Sienna and I were never close, but she apologized again when we crossed paths and did not ask me to forgive her. Adrian stayed professionally polite with Lauren and personally absent. From what I heard, their late-night mentorship ended as soon as it carried social risk. Lauren kept her promotion. She also kept the memory of a room going silent after she expected it to clap. As for me, I stopped attending events where my presence was required only to support someone else's image. I stopped explaining my boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding them. And I stopped confusing restraint with maturity. Restraint can be useful. It kept me from yelling, threatening, or giving Lauren the reaction she had already sold to everyone around her. But silence is not always dignity. Sometimes silence is simply permission that lasts too long. Lauren called me the man who couldn't stand beside her. The truth was, I finally stopped standing under her. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.